Okay, the next one is, I saw in a few of the students, they're doing graphing the cubics. For example, y is equal to x cubed plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 6. And they were asked to do it using a sign diagram. Which you don't see very often. Now, what we first of all have to do, and I'll do this in one of my other videos, is to find the solution, or in other words, the roots. And when it's a cubic, we just test x equals 1, and you put that in there and you get that 1 cubed plus 2 times 1 squared minus 5 times 1 minus 6. Does that equal 0? And when you do that, you get 2 plus 3 is 5. 1 plus 2 is 3. Minus 5 is minus 2. Minus 6 is minus 8. It's less than 0. So no, that's not a solution. And this is where it becomes that little housekeeping with where you put in the minus 1 in brackets. So you go minus 1 cubed plus 2 times minus 1 squared minus 5 times minus 1 minus 6. Does that equal 0? And it does. So that's whether you're doing the cubics. We don't know how to factorize a cubic, but if we find a factor, we then use our long division to find the other factors, and then we can factorize again. So the long division, as we went through once before, have a look at my 1, and remembering that becomes x plus 1 is the factor. I'll only do it quickly here, but I do have another video doing this exact one. And we'll better write that properly. There's my, I lost my little thing. Where did it go? We'll try that again. Ignore that bit. X squared cubed plus 2x squared minus 5x minus 6. And you ask yourself, x times what gives you x squared? And it's x squared times x plus 1. And you get x cubed plus x squared. And we put that x squared above. And then we minus that from it, x cubed plus x squared. Remembering, very important, to put in minuses here. That should cancel. If it doesn't, you've done something wrong. 2x squared minus x squared is x squared. And we bring these down as we do in long division. And then you say to yourself next, x times what gives me x squared? And it's just x. And we multiply that. It's just like normal long division. The x goes up the top, and my x squared plus x goes at the bottom. And then we minus them. And if that doesn't work, you've done something wrong. 5x minus x is minus 6x, and you can see straight away it's looking nice. X times what gives you minus 6x? It's minus 6. And have a look here. We get minus 6x minus 6, which is what we needed. And when we do that, shouldn't you get 0. So that's another factor. Now again, as I said, that was in one of my earlier sessions, and that allows you to use those as your factors. So I'm just going to rub that off. You can pause it to have a look at it. That's how we do that. So here, my factors will be x plus 1 and x squared plus x minus 6. Now for that to equal 0, we still can factorize this now. That was the whole point of doing that. That's using my other little x. If that's a negative, you find the difference. and the signs are different. So one's a plus and one's a minus. This one's a plus when that one's a negative. If that was a positive, you would have that the signs are the same, but it's a negative, so the signs are different. So here, the larger factor is positive. Then we look at this, and it's the factors of 6 that the difference is 1. And we go 6 times 1 equals 6, but 6 take 1 equals 5, so that's not it. Then you go, okay, there's 3 times 2 equals 6, and 3 take 2 does equal 1. So they're my factors. This told me that the larger one is positive, and you do that. And then lo and behold, we have x plus 1, x plus 3, and x minus 2 equals 0. And we use our null factor theory, which I did the other day. Or that equals 0, or that equals 0. And all that means is if 0 times anything is 0. This was 0, that times whatever they are would be 0. So we get that x plus 1 equals 0, or x plus 3 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals 0. And then we just get that x is equal to minus 1, or x is equal to minus 3, or x is equal to 2, because you take that to the other side. So then we find that we have x equals minus 1, minus 3, or positive 2. That's by factorising, which we did the other day. So now let's go back to here, the sign diagram. So you need to do all of that before you can do to draw it. Now we know, if we're just looking at this, we know, I'm going to do it as a normal one. Whoop, no, a bit further over. Minus 1, minus 2, oops, and minus 3, and 1, 2. Now I know that it's 0 at minus 1, minus 3, and 2. But it could be drawn like this. So the options are it could look like this, or alternatively, it could be that. Which way does it go? Well, that's where your sign diagram comes into play. Very simple, and you may get a question to say, draw the sign diagram. The sign diagram is just 0, minus 1, minus 2, minus 3, 1 and 2. You don't really need to draw anything else. And what we do is we know that what happens below 3, minus 3. So you can say from minus 0, whoop, so x between minus 3, or less, I say x less than minus 3, what's happening to the graph? And you try, I always try, well, what's past here? Let's try minus 4. So you go y is equal to minus 4 cubed plus 2 times minus 4 squared minus 5 times minus 4 minus 6. And when we put that in, I think we get minus 18. You guys can check it. So that means it's less than 0, it's negative. So before here, when you're drawing your little diagram, below here is going to be negative. So there on is going to be negative. This is in negative. That's your positive. So straight away we know that that way below 3 is going to be negative. So it's really going to look like that. Now you only have to really draw that because then you can work the rest of them out. But if we weren't, we then look between here and here. So what's happening between 3 and, as we know it was minus 1 and 2, what's happening between them two? Well, minus 2's in there. So what's happening between minus 3 less than or equal to x less than or equal to negative 1. What's happening between those? Well, try x equals minus 2. And you do the same thing. You go minus 2 cubed plus 2 times minus 2 squared minus 4. 5 times minus 2 minus 6. You sort of get my drift there. And with that one, we get 4. And that's greater than 0. So between here and here, it's positive. That's all the sign diagram means. What's happening before, what's happening in the middle, what's happening this side, what's happening that side of each of these points. So here, between minus 2 and minus 1, it's in the positive. And then we can try again between there and here. So what's happening between minus 1 and positive 2? Try 0. Try this one. What's happening here? We can already tell. So you put in y is equal to 0 cubed plus 2 times 0 squared minus 5 times 0 minus 6. It's less than 0 because it's minus 6. So between there and there, it's there. And we test after that, and it's there. So that's your sign diagram. What's the sign of before and after? And that's where we find out that's what we look like. And you don't worry about the y-axis. You can work it out if you want by putting in those values. A value of minus 2, what do you get as a y? We got 4, so it goes up to 4. And it goes down to whatever. But you guys can work that out. We know it goes down to minus 6. So there's lots you can do from that. That's just your sign diagram. So we looked at doing long division to find your cubic factors. We looked at the sign diagram and graphing it. So I might just also just show you what you should be doing when you're graphing. Now I don't recommend you do the sign diagram unless asked, but in case it's asked, you know what to do. So whenever you're graphing, we always look at the y-intercept, and we all know that's when x equals 0. So in this case, y will be minus 6. We look at the x-intercepts. That's when y equals 0, and we found that that was minus 3, minus 1, and 2. We could differentiate and find the maximum. We can use lots of different things, but that's sort of enough. So when you're drawing that, if you wanted to draw it, we do minus 1, minus 2, minus 3. We go down to minus 6, and we go 1, 2, 3, and 4, which doesn't really matter. We know it's here, we know it's here, we know it's here, and we know it's here. So you can work out the values as well if you wanted to by differentiating, but we know it looks something like that. I hope that makes sense. So that's just looking at the sign diagram and factorizing trinomials or cubics. Excellent.